Open your Bibles to the book of Ruth, if you would. If you don't have a Bible, raise your hand. The guys will bring you a copy. And I can't remember. I didn't write down from last week. I think it's like page 143, something like that. If you have one of our Bibles and you hit that page number, will you shout it out for me? And I'll figure it out. I think it's 143. But we looked last week at chapter 1. Today we're going to look at chapter 2. And we had kind of our collective meeting this week, and I think some of the guys are thinking maybe we'll combine that chapter 4. I don't know, but we'll spend 4 or 5 weeks in this book. So we said that the book itself has a lot of different themes in it. The overriding theme is the providence of God, the redemption of God. So we chose the idea because redemption is all through this. You cannot miss it. But we talked about really the providence of God. God's working in our life. Even obviously, and most of the time when we can't even really see it at that moment. So we talked about the providence of God and suffering. Let me do just a brief moment and kind of summarize chapter 1. If you look at chapter 1, verse 1, it came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. So there's a famine in Israel, especially in Bethlehem, which means the house of bread. There is a time of judges. It's a time of immorality. It's a time of sin. And I think most would believe that this famine is a result of God's disciplining the nation of Israel. And within the nation of Israel, there's this man Amalek, and his name means my God is king. And Naomi, whose name means pleasant, and 2 boys, Melion, whose name means puny, and Chilion, whose name means pining or dying. Okay, so you kind of take those together. So here is Amalek, and he's in this setting. He is God's guy. He's a Jew, and there's famine in the land. But his thought process goes like this. A guy's got to do what a guy's got to do. So I got to provide. I've got to go. And regardless of how God sees it or what God says, I'm going to take charge and I'm going to go do this. And indeed, there is that. We'll see that protection today that Boaz provides. We're going to see really a couple of, there's so many different messages, and obviously I'm going to miss more than I hit. But one of them is going to be kind of the role of the man as the provider and the protector, and we're going to see what at least in Boaz's eyes makes a beautiful woman. So if you're here and single today, I've got some little practical tips for you as well. But here's what happens. My God is king takes his wife Pleasant and his kids puny or sick and dying, and he goes to Moab. And he gets there, and the boys married 2 gals, Opha and Ruth. And by verse 5, what's happened is they've been in Moab at least 10 years, and all 3 of the guys die. Naomi hears that their famine in the land is over, so she decides she's going to go back. And she has these 2 Moabite women, her daughter-in-laws, and she says, I'm going to go. And they say, oh, no, we're going to go with you. And then she lays it out and says, this is going to be really hard. You're not from the nation of Israel. In that system, they would be provided. So the guys they were married to, their brothers would have to provide for the widow. Where they're gone, they don't have offspring, so you're all alone. You have no dough, you have no cash, you're a foreigner, you're not desirable, nobody's going to take care of you, nobody's going to want you, you're damaged goods. So Orpah says, you know what, you're right. She goes back, and Ruth says, no, you're not going to get rid of me. And so there's that beautiful section. In fact, we can even read it again in chapter 1, verse 16, where Ruth says, do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge, and your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. And where you die, I'll die, and there I will be buried. What an amazing statement of commitment on Ruth's part. And in response to that, Naomi really doesn't say anything. She just says, all right, and away they go. They come back to town. The town is abuzz. They come back and they say, is that Naomi? So they hear Naomi's back. She said, don't call me Naomi. Okay? Naomi means pleasant. Call me Mara. That means bitter, because I'm a bitter old lady. And it's not my fault. Verse 21, the end of verse 21, the Lord has witnessed against me, and the Almighty's afflicted me. God did this. I went away full. I had my husband. I had my sons. I had resources, land. I've lost it all, everything. And I'm bitter. And I confessed to you last week, and it really is all the way through this. She's the hardest of the character traits to figure out. We don't know if she wanted to go to Moab or she just simply went as the obedient wife. Don't know, but we know she's coming back bitter. But she has a resource that is incredibly strong, and the resource is Ruth. So where we left off last week is verse 22. So Naomi returned, and with her Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, who returned from the land of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem. Now here's the time frame, at the beginning of the barley harvest. Now what's interesting for us is that would almost coincide to where we are on the calendar today. The barley harvest would have been middle to end of April, so just a week or so ago. And the barley harvest, the wheat harvest, the two of them would last maybe 3 months. So she's got that in front of her. That's the condition. We pick up the story in chapter 2. Here's something really, to me, these are the kind of things I like. Chapter 1 covers a period of over 10 years. Chapter 2 covers a period of 1 day. And we told you last week, about 50% of the book is dialogue. So a lot of dialogue today, and there's others, but Boaz, we're going to meet him, Ruth, Naomi, and then some of the servants of Boaz will come into play along the way. The quality or characteristic we're going to talk about today is redemption in the midst of blessing. And so what really comes into play today is grace. But also, as we unwrap the story, we see this idea of God's grace and Ruth's obedience and God's blessing. So the one characteristic that separates biblical Christianity in terms of salvation from every other religion in the world is grace. And whenever we start to talk about grace, we can get a little goofy with it. We get all sorts of different responses when we talk about grace. Because some just hard, because we got a lot of conservative people hang out at redemption churches, especially Redemption Gilbert. So you get your shorts in a knot over about everything. So the minute we start talking about grace, you want to talk grace, obedience, you love God, obey my command, bam, that's it. But you got this reward stuff that's in here, this blessing stuff that's in here. Now, there are distorted pictures of that. There are people that just say, okay, I'm just going to obey, and then God's got to bless me. So at the end of today, we'll try to carve out the last 10 minutes or so to try to focus on that. But I want to make certain we get this story today. When we see Boaz, we said also, as we're looking through this narrative, we're looking at Old Testament pictures, kind of like with the parables. So I taught this week the parable of the talents. So the master leaves, he leaves one guy in charge of 5 talents were segments of money. So he gives one guy 5 talents, another 2, another 1, then he comes back, day of accounting, yada, yada, yada. So in this whole thing, as you teach it, you can go nuts with these parables. You can try to make them say this or make them say that. Generally, there's one big point. In the parable of the talents, really the point is, God gives you much, You'll be held accountable for how you steward that. Let me even digress just a second. Because the point in that, too, is everything in our life, although we possess it, is owned by God. So your time, your energy, your effort, your money, your brains, your good looks, your hard working, your commitment, your strength, your talent, the ability to play a piano, the ability to be good with numbers, whatever it is. When Rush Limbaugh says talent on loan from God, I don't think he means to be, but he's literally true. So even on this Mother's Day, even our kids. So Susan and I were married like 3 months. And I come home one day, I said, I'm not happy. And I've given you the best 90 days of my life. You know, I mean, what do you want? And she said, well, you know, Slick, you know, pal, you know, bargain either. So we're going at it like this. So if you have two people and they're all screwed up and they can't get along, what do? You have a baby. So now we have a baby, okay? So we're stuck on stupid here. We're just stuck. Well, in the middle of this, God saves us. And what we learned about our baby was that Sarah was not our baby. She was God's baby that he had entrusted to us. So even on this Mother's Day, and I'm not a stickler, I'm not going to hump all this language. But Mom, those really are, and this should make it even bigger, those really aren't your kids. Those are God's kids that he's entrusted to you, and one day he will judge you by how you stewarded that kid. So our parenting philosophy was really easy, to raise our kids to be independent of us, but dependent upon God. So it's all this kind of stewardship stuff. So grace, how do we handle it? So in chapter 2, Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth. And we're going to see that's great valor, great character. It's not just financial wealth. This is an extraordinary guy. He's an Old Testament picture of Jesus. He's from the family of Amalek. So if you're one of these people that mark in your Bible, let's put a circle around family of Amalek, whose name is Boaz. Ruth said to Naomi, please let me go to the field and glean, we'll talk about what that means in a minute, among the ears of grain after the one in whose sight I may find favor. So there's another word that you're going to have to, let's put an underline under favor. We'll figure out different ways to mark them. So favor or grace, we're going to see that. So she departed and was gleaning in the field after the reapers, and she happened. So we got to find another way to, let's put a box around that. She happened. She happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was, and this now we're circling, the family of Amalek. And then like in my Bible, because I mark all over, I just draw a line, because it's not going to block anything out, from that family of Amalek to the second reference, verse 1, verse 3. So that for me, the reason I do that is when I pick up this verse, so often you just pray, okay, God brings to mind some stuff here maybe because I know I've looked at it before, and all of a sudden you'll see those lines, you'll collect the family, and you'll see this idea of favor, and then you'll see this idea of they just happened. So there's this idea of gleaning. So here's Boaz, and the name Boaz means literally in his strength. So there's nothing. So God presents these humans in the scriptures pretty much warts and all. So you get Moses, you get the good, you get the bad. David, good, bad. Peter, good, bad. Paul, same thing. Nothing negative said at all about Boaz. So here comes Ruth, and she said, your people, your God, my God. And she comes to her mother-in-law, and she wants to talk about gleaning. Now, gleaning, and I'll just read you, it's Leviticus 19, 9 and 10. When you reap the harvest in your land, you shall not reap the corners of your field, nor should you gather the gleanings, what's left over there in the harvest, nor should you glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather the fallen fruit from your vineyard. and you shall leave them for the needy stranger, for I am the Lord your God. So he's saying, listen, so if your fields is this square, I want you to leave the corners, and just as you harvest, you're going to drop some accidentally, some as part of the process. Don't pick it up, because that's my program for feeding the poor, the hungry, the needy, the sojourner. So God has a clear picture in his heart for the needy. I don't want to make too much of a political thing out of this at all. But he also said, but they at least need to go do the picking. I read yesterday, 1 in 7 people in this country, now that's a lot, are on food stamps. Just give me a stamp and I go get whatever it is I want. That just doesn't, and I'm not denying need. I got need. I'm just saying, if you give somebody something for nothing, they're going to get addicted to something for nothing. And they're going to want more for nothing. Almost 50% of the people in the country pay no federal income tax. So, and 20% of the people get the majority of their income from the government. Those are a huge number. Let me tell you what are they going to do? Because we need hard and fast change, and some of those policies and departments need to be cut. Well, 50% of people aren't paying any tax. They're not looking to pay more tax. 20% of people are getting the majority of their dough from there. They're not going to change that. And 1 out of 7 are eating for nothing. Wow. God's plan is for us to take care of the poor. We want to do that. But he said, you know what? There's a corresponding responsibility here. They at least need to go out to the field and get it. So that's his plan. Naomi understood it. So Naomi goes to, Ruth understood it. Ruth goes to Naomi and says, this is what I want to do. And Naomi says, perfect. Pick me up some extra along the way, really is kind of what she's saying. So she goes out, and here's verse 3. And this is so cool. So she departed and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz. So here's this big, huge field, and different guys own different sections, and she just happens to be walking along, and she just happens to come to this field, and she knows the rules, and she just happens to stop in this one portion that just happens to be owned by Boaz. It's the providence of God. We don't know how she decided to stop here. We don't know if she heard a voice. Doesn't say any of this. My guess is she didn't. Been written in the sky, go here, follow this area. I doubt that it was a burning bush. I doubt it was a dream. There wasn't a chapter and verse. It's the providence of God. One author writes this: the providence of God is like Hebrew words. They can only be read properly backwards. So you're in the midst of something, you're going to go nuts, frankly, trying to figure all this out. But a lot of times you can kind of step back and you can look at it and go, wow, I see what God did. So in 1975, I'm in Iowa, and I'm talking to a guy, and it's late spring, early summer, and he said, I'm going to move to Scottsdale. I hate the winters in Iowa. I despise them. I'm done. I'm moving. I said, well, where's Scottsdale? I didn't know what state it was in. And he said, well, it's in Arizona. I said, I think I'll move too. He said, okay. So I moved. I moved from Iowa to Arizona, but not just Arizona, kind of Scottsdale. Well, on the other side of the country, Susan's in Idaho. Graduated from college. She's with the girl who was her best friend and roommate. And they decide, listen, we're going to be in Idaho all our lives. Let's go somewhere for a year, see what happens, then we'll come back. So they decide Arizona. On the way out of town, they stop to get a map to figure out how to get here. So they're driving down. Now, she lands in Arizona. Could have been any, but she comes to the Phoenix area. Not just the Phoenix area, she decides on Scottsdale. Well, I had decided on Scottsdale, but I was in North Scottsdale. For whatever reason, I decided I wanted to be downtown. So I moved to downtown Scottsdale, specifically 68th and Osborne. But on 68th and Osborne, there's 4 corners. to a residential, to her apartment. Susan's looking for a place. She lands at 68th and Osborne. But there's 4 corners, 2 are residential, 2 apartments. Apartments on the east, apartments on the west. She decides to go to the apartments on the west. I decide to go in the apartments on the west. I'm looking for an apartment, and the only vacancy they had was apartment 202, so I took it. A few months later, Susan's moving in, and she and her roommate want a place, and they want a 2-bedroom, and the only 2-bedroom available is 201. Okay? And then I just see her, and I'm attracted to her, and this is how lame I am, right? So she's swimming laps one day, so I'm standing down because I know she's going to end her towels here, so I know she's going to end there. And my best physical feature are my feet. I have perfect feet. I have absolutely perfect. They're perfect. Like George Costanza was a hand model. I could be a foot model. I just have perfect feet. So I'm standing down there, and she swims up and comes up to get a breath. And I said, hi. And she kind of looked at me, what are you doing? And I said, I got cool feet, huh? So not many guys have ever used that line. And she said, get the towel, get out of here. And so this started. So I just happened. She happened to be available. I happened to be available. She happened to like me. I happened to like me. It all worked. I mean, it's coming together like a hand and glove. Okay, and you look, and it's just been happen after. We come to Phoenix. I need a job. And my friends say, you ought to get into real estate. I said, oh my gosh, showing houses, I'd be out of my mind. And they said, no, commercial, it's easy. So I got on to Coldwell Banker, which at the time I think still is the best company in the town. What I don't realize, because I'm thinking, how would they not hire me? Just give me a desk, get out of the way. But what I did, literally to this day, I don't know anybody in the last 30 years who's got a job there who wasn't referred in. I just walked in off the street. They just happened to put me in an office where 2 guys one day were talking, and I just happened to overhear them at a point that I'm very low in my life, talking about them going to a Bible study, and though they never invited me, I just happened to ask if I could go, and I happened to show up the day that Larry Wright happened to be teaching from the book of Romans, and I happened to hear the gospel, and 6 days later, I happened to come to Christ in repentance and faith, and right after that, Larry happened to develop see what that is? So can I go in and start to orchestrate all this and God's moving on? I don't know. And this isn't to generate fatalism because we're going to see responsibility and decisions. I mean, she decided on that film. So how do you make a decision? How do you make those decisions in your life? How do you figure out what college to go to? How do you figure out whether to date somebody or marry somebody or if you're going to get married, where do you go? How do you make those decisions? Are they just all random? No, there's some processes. So next week we're going to talk about providence and decisions, but today it's really on God's blessing. So she goes out. Isn't that great? And she goes out, and there's our boy, Boaz. Verse 4. Now Boaz came from Bethlehem. He's a picture of Jesus. And he said to his reapers, may the Lord be with you. And they said, may the Lord bless you. Talk about no management labor problems. Look at him with his servants. So he is a man who's not just financially wealthy. He's wealthy of character. He's wealthy in his worship of God. He loves his people. I think this is a magnificent people. It's not me, but this hard rule. We did this little kind of self-evaluation the other day, and they said, what kind of environment, work-wise, do you not do well in? I said, top-down, heavy, authoritative, lots of rules. Not interested. Okay? I don't mind rules, and I don't mind a boss, but I want to like a Boaz. He just gets it. And you know what? Those of you that are bosses, you're afraid, if you show them you care, they'll take advantage of you. Some will, but you know what you're going to get? You're going to get this back. So just start doing this. Look at the Google employees. I know there's always exceptions. Look at Starbucks. Look at Whole Foods. All these companies pay well, benefits well, treat their people well. You go in there, and they care about you. I'm sure there's other companies. But you see that. And so then Boaz said to his servant, look at verse 5, whose young woman is this? So he says, who's the chick who's gleaning over there? Now, we've had long discussions because there's nothing in here that says she was physically attractive. And there's nothing, by the way, in here, at least as far as we're going to go today, that would in him say there was anything physically compelling about her. So think about it, okay? She's a foreign gal, probably doesn't speak the language well. She's sweating like a pig. She's out there picking up this stuff. She's braiding the hair on her legs. I always throw that in. So it's just nothing. There's just nothing. Okay, so I may be carried away, but my point is, she just didn't come out of a bath with a pedicure and a new. How do you like my new fragrance? There's not that. That's not going on here. And he says, who is she? Does she belong to anybody? She taken? Because boy, a girl like that, gotta believe the guys are gonna gobble her up. And the servant said, she's a young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab. And she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. And thus she came, and she has remained from morning until now. You can't stop her. She's a machine, but she's sitting down and she's taking a breath. And she's resting right now. That's who she is. In the Jewish scripture, the book of Ruth immediately follows the book of Proverbs. So if you're reading through those Jewish literature, you finish Proverbs 31, this picture of what a woman is and what she's to be. And it talks about hardworking and qualities and character, and she's entrepreneurial and all the other things. And then your next page, you meet Ruth. So here's this gal, Ruth. And Boaz is absolutely smitten with her. He sees something totally different about her. And I'm okay, maybe, that there's a physical attraction, but there's something that's way deeper than that. I watched an interview with Rob Lowe the other night. By the way, it was terrific. And he was talking about, he's been sober. He and Charlie Sheen used to hang out a lot. And he's been sober like 21 years. And this is going to sound, I probably shouldn't even say it, but I don't mean it this way. But Rob Lowe was known for a lot of the really beautiful women he dated. And he married this gal who was his, I think, on one of the movies he was doing, she was his makeup gal. But she said, we just like connected. We were like best friends. And I just knew she cared about me and she didn't want anything from me. And he said, I think she's really hot. Now they had her picture up. I guess it's hot. I don't know. She's lukewarm anyway. But I mean, here's this guy, and I mean this. He was lukewarm. Rob Lowe was great in this interview. But it was like, it wasn't just that he got the gal with the prettiest face and the nicest figure and the best hair and all. He just said, no, there was something about her that was different than everybody else. So girls, I'm just telling you that, and guys too, because other guys go, oh, the girls are taken. Ruth wasn't. I see gals all around Redemption Church, studies I do. I see great young single gals, many who are desperate to find a guy because they don't think there are many guys. But there are Boazes out there. Not many. But there's Boazes out there, and there's a lot of Ruths. Okay? And how do you find them? I'm just telling you. You can go through, do whatever, and I'm not down on any of that stuff. But the best way to find them is just live life and live it for Christ and do what's going to happen. And God's just going to bring somebody in there. I know that's a crummy answer. I hate that answer. But it just happens that way. It just kind of, you're hanging out. I was talking to somebody, and where'd you meet your wife? I decided to work in children's ministry. She had a kid in children's ministry. Man, we got married, happy as can be. God will do these things. You just be the person God's called you to be, the guy, the gal. Do your thing, and God, if God's got that person, he can do it together. He can bring her from Idaho, Iowa, and around 202, 201, he can go. He can do that. Okay? He just does. That's what he does. That's the whole point here. Now, that's not an excuse to do nothing. So, because we can do the same thing as it relates to work or any issue, but I still have a responsibility, right, to work and to prepare and to do all the things I'm supposed to do. So here's what Boaz gets who she is, and he understands it, and she's been gleaning. And now in verse 8, Boaz said to Ruth, listen carefully, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field. I don't want to lose you, babe. So don't be going over, because I've never trusted Mort. So don't go over there and start gleaning over there. Okay? Furthermore, don't go on from this one, but stay here with my maids. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap. Don't be looking around. Go after them. Indeed, I've commanded the servants not to touch you. I'm going to give you protection. And when you're thirsty, to give you water from the jar that the servants drink of. So there you go, guys. That's what a girl's looking for. Protection, security, somebody to love them, somebody to care for them. Okay? You can talk about all the other stuff, but that's kind of what you're after. Guys be a guy and girls be girls. I mean, we don't have to, we don't have to figure all this stuff out. It's not that hard. Boaz gets it. Look at her response. She fell on her face. I never quite got that response, but nonetheless, we continue. Then she fell on her face, bowing on the ground, and she said to him, why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me? I'm a foreigner. You know what she's saying? I'm not worthy of you, Boaz. I don't get it. I don't know what you're doing here, man. I didn't expect it. I don't deserve it. I'm just gleaning. I'm not worthy. I don't bring anything. Everything Naomi said is true. So in the midst of all this, and I can't get it, and I said that to her, there's like probably 24 legitimate ways to start to teach this, so I can only pick one. So you kind of pick the one that fits for you and you apply it. Let me give you the overarching principle. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. And he found favor. And remember, this is pictures of salvation, so that's really us before God. That should be our response to him. If you're one of these people that you're doing worship and they're reading, the songs are up there and you're singing, and kind of going, geez, how long can that last? I got to get worship. I got to get motivated. I'll give you motivation. It's the same motivation Ruth has here. God dumps all this grace on you. I've been watching Oprah a lot lately, okay? Because it's the farewell season and I'm going to miss her. So she had on Shania this week, missed it, TiVo'd it, got it. 2 weeks ago, she had on a best friends only show. Okay? And so you had to bring your best friend to go. So she and Gail are up there. They're talking about all the stuff they've done, how cool it is. There were some really great scenes. So at the end, here's what Oprah says. You and your best friend are going to the Maribel Spa for 3 days and 2 nights. And these gals went nuts. They were so excited. They're jumping up and down. It was awesome. I mean, I thought it was really cool. And then I thought, so God says, I've forgiven all your sin. You'll spend eternity in heaven, and my spirit will indwell you here. Yeah, that's a big one. Thanks. They're going to the spa. You're going to heaven. They're dancing around like it's a big deal, and you're going, how long do you think he's going to talk? Isn't that amazing? We're a little jacked up, I'd say. And in this process, the thing that's going to focus me is when I understand the grace that he's given me. And what, in essence, he now says is the Lord rewarded you. So look at verse 11, and we got to fly now. Oh, my golly. All that you've done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been reported to me, and how you left your father and your mother and your land, and you came to a place where you didn't know anybody. May the Lord reward your work. And he goes on, and he gives her instructions. And mealtime comes in verse 14, and Boaz says, come here that you may eat from the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. And so she sat beside the reapers, and they took care of her. And then he tells them, when you go out and you're harvesting, he tells his reapers, drop some stuff on purpose for her. Well, if we're to shift to another scene, the other scene is she eventually goes home. She picks what's about 30 or 40 pounds, bushel and a half. So she's a hardy stock too, okay? And she hauls this stuff home, and she took it to Naomi, verse 19, and her mother-in-law said to her, where did you glean today? Where did you work like this? We've never seen anything like this. May he who took notice of you be blessed. And she told her mother-in-law, you should have seen this guy. His name was Boaz. Boaz means in strength. Wow. I don't mean, nothing against your son Puny, but, that kind of thought, I don't know. It doesn't say that, but that's where you have a little, that's after you've studied too long and you're delirious, you're going, and she had to say that rather than. May be blessed of the Lord. He has not withheld his kindness. Verse 20, key word, kindness. Underline it, box it, move it. It's a word that in Hebrew that appears 250 times in the Old Testament. It speaks predominantly of God and his reference to us, his expression of his goodness and his commitment and his loyalty and his love and his care for us. And so back she goes. Then Ruth says in verse 21, furthermore, he said, you shall stay close to my servants until they finished all the harvest. And Naomi said to Ruth, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his maids so that the others do not fall upon you in a field. Don't want you to get hurt. So she stayed close to the maids of Boaz in order that the gleaning till the end of the harvest and wheat and barley harvest. So about 2.5 months. Now, and bam, we pick up right there next week with Boaz. We're in a funky, weird story. I'll just tell you this. Take a second. Don't do it now. Take a second sometime this week, and you read chapter 3, and then you come in next week and tell me what it means. It's some weird stuff. We're gonna have to study really hard, because on the surface, there's a lot of things going on in there. Here's what I want you to see here. Some of it really obvious. But God's provision and God's blessing. But also the idea of Naomi sending Ruth out, Ruth obediently following her mother-in-law's orders, and then God blessing Ruth's obedience. When it comes to this idea of obedience, we talked about as we were preparing the lesson, and we came up with kind of 3 ideas that can be false ideas. One of them is the idea that is this: I'm saved by grace through faith. I got to obey. If you love me, you keep my commandments. You love me, yes, obey me. Very cold, very sterile. The other is license. So we're talking about grace, obedience, rewards. The other is God's given me grace, so I get rewards. It doesn't matter whether I'm obedient or not. There's a third one that's kind of this prosperity thing that says, if I obey, God will do it. If I do this, God's obligated to do that. That's my problem. I always had those problems with those stories. I talk all the time, like Daniel. Daniel goes into the lion's den, does everything right, everything goes okay, spends the night in the lion's den. The lion doesn't eat him, he gets out the next morning. I hate that story. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, 2 chapters earlier. In they go, into the fire. They're there. The fire's all around them. There they are burning. Bada, bada, bada. They come out and they don't even smell like fire. I hate that story. Now, here's why I hate the story. It's not that I got any problem with those boys. The problem is with us. Because we have a tendency to read those stories and say, well, if I'm obedient like they were, when I'm in my lion's den or my fire, God's going to get me out of it. And all of you have lived long enough now to know that doesn't always happen. The gospel is this, that we're saved by grace through faith. And for a variety of reasons, by the way, included in them the desire for heavenly rewards. There's others for sure, so God might use us to display the gospel, so God might infect the community with our love to please him. There's all sorts of ways. But one of them, just for pure heavenly rewards, that's not selfish. He says, if you do this, this is what I'm going to do. So along comes the gospel. Here's God's grace. God gives me grace. I'm obedient. There's a reward. I'm thankful. And that continues. Religion has the same idea, but it's not motivated by grace. It's motivated by fear. It's motivated by if I don't do this, God's going to zap me, all that kind of stuff. But that's not what's going on here. Now, maybe you're here today and you're going, I don't have the foggiest clue what they're talking about. Well, here's what we're saying, is that you can today be in right relationship with God, and that happens not through your obedience, but through God's grace. You're just like, in that sense, like Ruth. You don't deserve anything, but nonetheless, Jesus, in this picture Boaz, comes along and he sheds grace on you. We're saved by grace through faith. There was that point in time. You may know the day, you may not. There's that point in time where you understood that your sin separated you from God, and God now moves. God opens your heart. God did it. It just happened. It was in his providence. Before the foundations of the earth, he decided that you'd be his kid. And you're saved by grace. You didn't bring anything to it. In fact, anything you had got in the way. You didn't think you were smart enough, you were too smart. You didn't think you had enough, you had too much. It was always in the way. But now, how do you respond? Fall on your face, the Eastern custom. You thank God. You pour out your heart to him. If you're over in the conference center, you've already had that time where you've taken communion together and worship together. But for us that are here in the chapel, what's going to happen is in about a minute, Justin's going to come and lead you in a time of communion. It's a response to this. And then Tim and the band are going to come and lead you in songs that are a response to that. If you're over in the conference center, as soon as we're done, Justin will be there to close your time. But this becomes the whole cycle of life. And all of a sudden, it just begins to feed on itself. The more grace he gives me, the more I obey. The more I obey, the more he begins to bless. In big ways and small ways. I'm going to tell you, I wasn't going to tell this story, and I decided to, because I'm into this. I think God does these huge things all the time, and we don't even see them. We don't even get them. Okay, we're waiting for him. Like, here comes the guy that's got half a leg. If God does something, boink, you get a new leg. That kind of stuff. That's the stuff we're waiting for. This week, so 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, I'm on the phone, and because Susan is at a point now where she's always handled our finances for 33 years, and she's been incredible. But I need to remove that burden from her now. So I'm trying to do it, okay? I've never been to an ATM. I don't have a debit card. My ATM is I go, Susan, I need money, and then she gives me money and I go. Okay? So I'm learning all this stuff. Well, I'm on the phone with this guy, we're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I give him a credit card for something. Okay? Now that's 2 weeks ago. So not last Monday, the Monday before. Last Thursday, so like my wallet is, I have a wallet, you have a wallet, this is my wallet. Okay? So I use this. And I keep all these ones in it, okay? And then I have another little thing that I have credit cards in. So Thursday, I realized, well, I can't find my credit card. Where did I have it last? Oh, yeah, it's at home, because I had it out talking to the guy on the phone. I go through the day, I go home. I look everywhere. I cannot find that credit card. I turn that house upside down, okay? The next morning, because I'm on my way to the bank the next morning. The next morning, and I'm serious about this. I think this is a gigantic God thing. The next morning, I'm brushing my teeth. I don't even have to do much because it's electric. All I got to do is hold on. I'm holding on. So I'm not even brushing my teeth. I'm holding on to this thing. And I get a vision of me in the car, reaching under the seat and pulling out a credit card. So I go out, I get in the car. I have a Volkswagen Passat. Well, there's no room. There's a little motor that moves the thing around because apparently I'm not agile enough to do it on my own. So there's motor. Well, there's nothing in there. So I start pulling stuff out. I mean, I'm pulling out. I found Jimmy Hoffa's ear. I'm pulling out stuff. There's stuff flying out of there. There's pens. There's things. There's everything. I can't find it. I clean out all this. I'm under Susan's side. I'm under everything. So I get the idea, well, you're kind of a fat toad. Why don't you back it out out of the garage so you can get in under there? I get under there. I can't get anything. Cut my hands, complaining. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, okay, this was just stupid. And out falls the credit card. Now, I started to tear up, and I'm going, you know what, God? Because I have not been a good boy. For you to give me that, and I know that sounds like a really little deal. And that was gigantic. That was totally him. I got obviously, I put the card there. But that's the stuff he does all the time. I'm telling you that. If you're waiting for these big moments, they'll come. But there's like moment after moment, day after day, where he's just sparing you, moving you, providing this. Does he always do it? No. Do I think the next time I lose my credit card, I'm going to go in right away and go, I know what to do. I'm going to brush my teeth. That's where God speaks to me. Not even brush them, just hold it. Well, no. But that's what he did. And I'm just telling you, there's that obedience, and then he blesses you, and then you're thankful for that blessing, and he tends to bless you more as you're obedient to him. It doesn't mean life isn't tough. I mean, I'm on my way right now. I'm going to say amen to you, and I'm going to the grocery store to get groceries, and I talked to Susan between two services, and she just said, I feel so sick. It doesn't mean that's going to go away. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. He's a great God who's redeemed you. Now, if you don't know what it means to be redeemed, when we're done here, in the front of the conference center and in the front of the chapel, there's going to be men and women who are here who for that moment in time exist for one reason, and that's to answer your questions and spend time with you. So if you're in the conference center, Justin's right up right now, and he's going to say thank you and give you some instruction. If you're here in the chapel, Justin will be out in a second, lead us in our time of communion. Father, thank you for these amazing truths. And they are from you, and they are of you, and God, we thank you for them. We just pray that you would continue to use us in a way that would bring honor and glory to you. We love you because you first loved us, Father, and now we pray that we would obediently follow you and know that part of that is the reward, the blessing, the joy that we have of knowing we're in right relationship with you. God, we love you and we pray with you. Amen.